Hello YouTube viewers, welcome back to our channel, where today we're exploring the hidden lives and stories behind Hollywood's brightest stars. Get ready for an inside look into the fascinating love triangle involving Margaret Sullavan, Jimmy Stewart, and Henry Fonda, a story with more drama and intrigue than anyone could have imagined. After Margaret Sullavan passed away, her daughter revealed the surprising truth about her mother's relationship with Stewart and Fonda, exposing a side of Hollywood rarely seen. Long before Jimmy Stewart's legendary rise to stardom, he was a reserved and shy young boy, often losing himself in dreams of becoming a pilot. Each day after school, he would retreat to the basement, spending hours carefully building model airplanes. At this stage in life, he seemed quite ordinary. His grades were average to low, and teachers frequently found him daydreaming in class. But Jimmy had a hidden talent waiting to emerge, a talent that would become a lasting part of his life and legacy. One day at his father's hardware store, a customer, unable to pay, offered his accordion in exchange. In a scene reminiscent of It's a Wonderful Life, a local barber taught Jimmy to play, sparking a lifelong passion for music. Yet with his interests scattered, his future path seemed uncertain. Although Jimmy dreamed of being a pilot, his father envisioned a different future: college at Princeton, and eventually managing the family hardware store. Ever the dutiful son, Stewart enrolled in Princeton in 1928. Despite earning a substantial scholarship for graduate study upon graduation, Stewart surprised everyone by following his heart instead. He joined a theater company. There he met Henry Fonda and Margaret Sullavan, and the three became inseparable friends. However, this connection grew into one of Hollywood's most iconic love triangles. While Stewart and Fonda became close friends, Jimmy developed strong feelings for the charming Sullavan. He eventually worked up the courage to ask her out, which she later described warmly as the longest, slowest, sheest, but most sincere proposal she'd ever heard. Despite their friendship, Jimmy and Sullivan's timing was never right, and they didn't become a couple. After she turned him down, Henry Fonda stepped in, capturing Sullivan's heart and marrying her in 1931. However, Sullivan's belief in Stewart's potential never wavered. She wholeheartedly thought he would be a Hollywood star. This bittersweet friendship would eventually help launch his career. By 1936, Stewart had signed a contract with MGM, though his roles were lackluster. Meanwhile, Sullavan, Stewart's unrequited love, thrived at Universal Pictures, dominating the acting scene. Sullavan, determined to help Stewart succeed, believed he was perfect for the role in Next Time. We Love and convinced Universal to let him audition as her leading man, despite his lack of fame. Stewart passed the screen test, but his nerves were unmistakable. Lacking the confidence and experience of a seasoned actor, he felt overwhelmed on set, and even director Edward H. Griffith couldn't resist teasing him for his awkwardness. However, Sullavan had unwavering faith in his potential and dedicated her evenings to coaching him, helping Stewart control his nervous quirks, which would later become one of his endearing trademarks. Her efforts paid off. Stewart's progress stunned Griffith, and MGM's Bill Grady was equally impressed, remarking on his transformation. Yet Stewart's personal life continued to mirror the ups and downs of his career. In 1936, Sullavan married someone else, disappointing Stewart, who, coincidentally or not, moved into a home near hers. Meanwhile, it was Sullavan's former husband, Henry Fonda, who introduced Stewart to his first Hollywood romance with the iconic dancer Ginger Rogers. Though brief, their relationship was significant, marking a milestone for Stewart, who was already 30, when Rogers became his first serious love. Their chemistry lit up both their personal lives and the screen, especially in Vivacious Lady 1938, where their connection was undeniable. Stewart's next project drew him back to Sullavan for The Shop-Worn Angel in 1938. Playing alongside her again, their natural rapport was clear, and the film's love triangle storyline echoed his real-life feelings. While Stewart's affections for Sullavan lingered, he was also enjoying a 6-week romance with actress Norma Shearer during production. After that, Loretta Young entered his life, a Hollywood beauty with a sterling reputation and a strong affection for Stewart. Unfortunately, Stewart's heart wasn't in it as much as hers, and their relationship ended before it could fully blossom. Stewart wasn't ready for commitment. His bachelor lifestyle offered endless adventures and romantic opportunities. One of the most daring of these came with Marlene Dietrich, whom he met during the filming of Destry Rides Again in 1939. This affair was made even more scandalous by Dietrich's marital status. Stewart's passionate affair with Dietrich came to an abrupt end when she informed him that she was pregnant. Unhappy with the news, Stewart insisted she terminate the pregnancy, and their relationship quickly unraveled. Dietrich went through with the abortion, but the damage was irreparable, and once filming wrapped, Stewart ended things decisively, breaking her heart. Later, Dietrich would barely mention him in her memoir, a clear sign of lingering resentment. She glossed over their relationship, framing it as a trivial affair, signaling Stewart's growing reputation as a heartbreaker. Despite personal turmoil, Stewart's career soared in 1940. He reunited with Margaret Sullavan on 2 projects, including The Shop Around the Corner, but it was the Philadelphia Story that marked a true breakthrough. Starring alongside Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, Stewart delivered a celebrated comedic performance, propelling the film to box office success. However, he still struggled with anxiety on set, especially during a scene where his character had to recite poetry to Hepburn. Insecure about his ability to pull it off, Stewart was encouraged by Noel Coward, who provided much-needed support. Stewart's performance was so well received that he earned an Academy Award for Best Actor, triumphing over his friend Henry Fonda. Although the award should have been a moment of pure joy, Stewart privately felt he hadn't truly earned it. The previous year, he'd been nominated for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington but lost, and he worried his win for the Philadelphia Story was more of a consolation prize. Soon, however, his focus would shift to matters far beyond Hollywood. As World War II loomed, Stewart entered a brief, intense romance with screen legend Olivia de Havilland, even proposing to her. Despite her affection, she turned him down, sensing he wasn't quite ready for marriage and had fallen for director John Huston. Shortly afterwards, Stewart's life took a patriotic turn. With a deep sense of duty, he was one of the first Hollywood stars to enlist, though his lean frame initially prevented him from joining. After months of training to meet the weight requirement, he was cleared for service in February 1941. While many celebrities in the armed forces took on symbolic roles, Stewart was determined to engage directly. Driven by his love for aviation, he rose from private to colonel within 4 years, serving in Germany and earning the distinguished Croix de Guerre. Even during his service, he found brief solace in a romance with singer Dinah Shore. The two nearly married, getting as far as a Las Vegas chapel before Stewart, grappling with his wartime experiences, backed out. The impact of Stewart's wartime service on his personal and professional life was profound and long-lasting. His missions as a bomber pilot brought him face-to-face with death and destruction on a scale he could never have imagined, and he later described the experience as both life-altering and haunting. Stewart flew over 20 combat missions, often placing him in immediate danger, and he witnessed the loss of many of his squadron members. According to biographers, Stewart was deeply affected by the mental toll of combat, leading to what we would now likely identify as post-traumatic stress disorder. The war left him visibly changed, with family and friends noting his gaunt appearance and the weight of emotional scars that seemed to linger long after he returned to civilian life. After the war, Stewart struggled to reconnect with Hollywood and had difficulty finding satisfaction in acting, which he began to see as trivial compared to the life and death experiences he had faced. He reportedly considered abandoning his film career altogether, feeling detached from the industry that had once been his passion. The roles he took on after the war, such as George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, often reflected the darker, more complex sides of human nature and allowed him to channel the depth of his wartime experiences into his characters. Stewart's gravitation towards morally ambiguous and psychologically intense roles marked a significant shift in his career, bringing an authenticity to his performances that resonated deeply with post-war audiences. This shift, both personal and professional, defined the second half of his career and established him as a powerful figure in American cinema, who portrayed characters wrestling with resilience, trauma, and redemption. Stewart rarely spoke about his wartime service, but the toll it took on him was evident. According to his biographer, the trauma left Stewart unable to eat or sleep, and he returned to Hollywood looking gaunt and exhausted. The most devastating blow came when his squadron suffered heavy losses in his absence, with 130 of his comrades killed in a single mission. Reuniting with his family, he was almost unrecognizable, with a hardened, commanding presence. Considering leaving Hollywood for good, Stewart weighed returning to his family business, but found fate had other plans in what would become the defining chapter of his career under the direction of Frank Capra. Director Frank Capra was instrumental in launching the next phase of Stewart's career. When casting for It's a Wonderful Life, Capra considered both Stewart and his friend Henry Fonda for the role of George Bailey. In the end, Capra believed Bailey's unwavering optimism and kindness could only be captured by Stewart. Ironically, Stewart wasn't initially thrilled by the part. Returning from war, he had been asked what type of role he was interested in, and his answer revealed a deep disillusionment. So when Capra offered him the lead in It's a Wonderful Life, a role involving despair and thoughts of suicide, Stewart was uncomfortable with the idea. This discomfort stemmed not only from the character's emotional demands but from his own struggles with readjustment after serving in World War II. Haunted by the traumatic experiences he faced as a pilot, Stewart found it difficult to reconnect with Hollywood's glitz and felt disconnected from the optimism of pre-war life. The role of George Bailey, a man driven to the edge of despair and contemplating suicide, seemed to reflect Stewart's own internal battles, forcing him to confront his fears and disillusionment directly on screen. Stewart later shared that his wartime experiences left him questioning his own worth and place in the world, a feeling that mirrored George Bailey's sense of failure and desperation. At times, the emotional demands of filming were so overwhelming that Stewart reportedly questioned his decision to return to acting altogether. Capra, however, believed that Stewart's personal struggles could lend the character an authenticity that was impossible to manufacture. While It's a Wonderful Life is now celebrated as a heartwarming holiday classic, the filming process was far from uplifting for Stewart. Newly returned from combat, he reportedly felt tense throughout production, frequently doubting his own performance and wondering if he should quit acting altogether. He channeled his emotions into the film, bringing raw intensity to some of the most moving scenes. Despite his efforts, the movie was not a success initially, and it failed to recover its production costs. Though this outcome was discouraging, It's a Wonderful Life would eventually achieve iconic status, experiencing a revival that cemented it as one of the greatest films of all time. Stewart later admitted it had become his favorite role, likely because it so closely resonated with his own complex emotional journey. Unfortunately, many of Stewart's best performances were underappreciated until years later. His collaborations with Alfred Hitchcock, such as Rear Window and Vertigo, are now hailed as classics. However, Vertigo initially flopped both critically and commercially, and Hitchcock publicly attributed its failure to Stewart, claiming he looked too old for the part, a harsh remark, especially considering Stewart's physical toll from the war. To add insult to injury when casting North by Northwest, Hitchcock chose Cary Grant over Stewart, even though Grant was 4 years older. Amid these professional challenges, Stewart's personal life finally settled down. Known for his earlier romantic escapades, he was reaching his 40s and about to experience a new chapter in love. In his 40s, the once legendary bachelor Jimmy Stewart finally met the woman who would become the love of his life, Gloria Hattrick McLean. Their first encounter was at a Christmas party in 1947, where Stewart's overindulgent antics left a poor impression on her. Fortunately, he had a second chance the following year when his friend Gary Cooper invited him to a dinner party and Gloria happened to be there. This time, Stewart's charm won her over, and in 1949 they married. From that point forward, Stewart was fully devoted to Gloria, leaving behind his bachelor ways. The couple created a happy family together, with Stewart adopting Gloria's 2 sons, and in 1951, welcoming twin daughters. Though he was a devoted father, parenthood brought profound challenges. Stewart, proud of his military service, expected his sons to serve as well, but this expectation led to unimaginable heartache when his eldest son, Ronald, was killed in action in Vietnam in 1969. This loss wasn't Stewart's first experience with grief. 9 years earlier, he had lost someone dear to him, his close friend and former love, Margaret Sullavan. While Stewart managed to continue his career, Sullavan faced declining health and tragically passed away from an accidental overdose in 1960. Gloria later shared that Sullavan's death devastated Stewart. Stewart also outlived his beloved wife Gloria, and her passing in 1994 left him deeply shaken. Despite these personal trials, Stewart's reputation remained one of integrity and kindness. However, Sullavan's daughter, Brooke, would later reveal a hidden chapter in his life. During her marriage to Henry Fonda, Sullavan had temporarily given in to her feelings for Stewart, leading to a year-long affair. After Gloria's death, Stewart struggled greatly, and he passed away from heart failure 3 years later, surrounded by loved ones. As President Bill Clinton remarked upon his death, the country had lost a true national treasure, a remarkable actor, and a gentleman.